Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. I hope you never need this, but if you do, some things to consider. Personal injury lawyer, a trial lawyer. We're going to speak with one today who has been practicing for decades and has demonstrated a significant number of multi-million-dollar awards for his clients. He is an incredibly respected trial attorney in the Maryland area, and he's got so much insight. So great to have him back here. Paul Bekman is on the program. Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm fine, Steve. How are you? Good to see you.
You too. Yeah, great to have you back here. Learned so much, and even along the way during these podcasts, some trending topical stories have come up and you've addressed them and gave us insight on them. I want to focus on you a little bit today and your journey and what truly makes an effective trial lawyer. How do we know? How do we decide? How do we look at their history and say, oh, check that box, check that box? Let's go back to the beginning. For you, how did it begin?
Well, of course, it began first by my wanting to be a lawyer. Didn't know initially when I started law school that I would end up being a trial lawyer. You know, the practice of law is wide and expansive, and there's so many things that a lawyer can do. But after my first year of law school, I did what a lot of other people have done, and that is to get a job as a law clerk with a law firm that has a good reputation, that has areas that you might be interested in. And that's exactly what I did. I went to a firm that I think could best be described as a general practice firm. They handled everything. But within the firm, they had a litigation area where you were involved in trials. And it just grabbed me from the beginning. And I started to work with lawyers in the firm who had tried cases, and I assisted them, for example, in writing briefs to support their verdict that they may have had, attending depositions that they did to get an idea of how to do it. Depositions or question and answer periods under oath, and even going to trial and being present when a trial was going on. Even though I was a law clerk, I didn't participate as such, but I actually, when I was a lawyer, I did try a National Labor Relations Board case, it was a labor case, which was fun to do, but it was not what I really wanted to do. I, after seeing what the practice of law could be for me, that I thought that I could be a good trial lawyer. So what happened was I graduated and I went back to work for the same firm as an associate. I had worked there during the summers. I had worked there during the year for several years. I knew everybody and they knew me. And they wanted me to get the experience right away of being able to try a case. So what happened was I hadn't been a lawyer for 30 days. And they said, Paul, we're going to give you these two cases. These are automobile cases, fairly serious injuries, very disputed liability. They were not winners. In fact, they told me, look, they're losers. We know that you're not going to win these cases, but we want you to get the experience of trying a case before a jury, and preparing it will assist you in the preparation. You'll go in there, you'll try the case. It'll be all about you. So I dug in, worked my you-know-what off, and as a result, I tried both cases and I won both cases. And once that happened, Steve, I was hooked, because this is something that I thought could be a very good way to have my experience focused on being a trial lawyer. And from that time, when I did that, I was very active in taking on cases and basically running as a young lawyer the trial practice in the law firm. I even argued a case in our highest court that I had handled and had won and the other side had appealed in the Court of Appeals of Maryland, which was the highest court. And it established a new law, which was ordinarily when you go to and from work, you're not within the scope of your employment. But in this particular case, a police officer was called into work on an emergency. And when he was on his way into work, he was rear-ended in the Harbor Tunnel and seriously injured, never returned to work. So we had filed a claim for him for what's called special disability with the city of Baltimore. And it was contested. And they say, look, you're going to and from work. That's not within the scope of employment. However, there's an exception. And the exception that I established and which the court ruled existed was the special mission exception to the going and coming rule. If you have a special mission, a special event, which this was, then you are in the course of your employment. And the Court of Appeals established that 50 years ago. And it is still the law of Maryland. So as an example, and you ask, what makes a good trial lawyer, a successful trial lawyer? And I think it can be done in a lot of different ways. For example, the important thing about trials, in my view, is preparation. There is no substitute for preparation, and there's no substitute for perseverance. Those two characteristics, in my view, are the most important factors for a trial lawyer. The other one being not being afraid to lose. Nobody, no trial lawyer wins every single case. But if you end up having a situation where you are afraid to try the case, you are going down the wrong road. And what that ends up doing is the lawyer tends to be one who settles every case without trying the case and getting the result that would really be the right result for the case. And I've always been a believer in this basic concept. If you prepare your case for settlement, you're guaranteed to go to trial. But if you prepare your case for trial, you are enhancing your cases of settling the case, because the people on the other side, the lawyers on the other side, the insurance companies on the other side, they know that if Bekman has the case and he's worked it up, he's going to try it. And my experience has been with a lot of carriers and with a lot of, because I do a lot of medical negligence case, a lot of the hospitals have said, look, before you file your lawsuit, if you believe you have a viable case, come to us first and let's sit down and let's see if we can resolve it. Now, I can tell you there are not a lot of lawyers around where that happens. And the reason that it happened is because they knew that I would not be afraid to come in and try the case from beginning to end. And that's always a very difficult thing for carriers, insurance carriers, to look at, which is, what do I do here? We know he's going to try the case. Maybe the best thing to do is to settle it, have a mediation, even have an arbitration, and we don't have to go before a jury. And that has served me well during the years that I have practiced.
I want to ask you a couple of questions at this point. Is it typically favorable to seek a settlement, or is it, let's go to trial?
So I think it depends on the particular case. As you know, there are cases where liability is clear. There are cases where that may not be so clear, and it would be a jury question as to whether or not the jury would find in your favor. So the best way to handle those kind of cases is to prepare them for trial, get ready to try the case. But there may very well be, and we have in our court system here in Maryland, and I think it's fairly typical around the states, is there's a mandatory settlement conference now in all civil cases, whether you're in state court or in federal court. And they have a judge who is specifically assigned to settle the case. That has resulted in a lot of cases being settled. Also, depending upon the case, the parties will agree to a mediation with a private mediator. And there are a lot of very good ones out there who, and amazingly, Steve, in the area of Zoom that we're dealing with today, they're done by Zoom. And they're just as effective as if the mediator is in your office, then walks down the hall to the other side, then walks back to you. It can be done by Zoom. And I have found since the pandemic, when this Zoom really came into play, that Zoom is a terrific vehicle to get cases settled. You're put in one room, the other side is put in the other. The mediator goes back and forth. It's just as effective
Wow.
to do so.
Now, you mentioned the word conference, and I want to go back to something you said previously, deposition, and it's under oath. Is that essentially like a pre-conference before anything else takes place, before it even goes to trial, anything, but it's under oath?
The important thing in trial preparation, from my point of view, is you have a case against, let's say, a particular physician, and the physician failed to do what the physician was required to do. There was a test that was done that showed that the person had a particular type of infection, and it was basically not recognized. It was in the record, not recognized, or an X-ray was in the record and not recognized, which showed a tumor. And what is done in an effective way is the defendant is questioned under oath. Example, the missed tumor. I took the deposition of the expert for the defense who said that nothing was done wrong. I got copies of the X-rays. I had them blown up. I asked the doctor, have you reviewed the X-rays that were taken in this case? The scans that were taken in this case? MRIs, CT scans? Yes, I have. Well, let me show you this scan. Showed him was an obvious growth on the kidney. And I said, take a look at this, would you? He said, I will. Do you see anything abnormal here? Yes, I do. I said, could you put a circle around it? And he took a blue pen and he put a circle around it. And I showed him 4 or 5 others that were taken at different views. And he circled it. And he ended up circling it in a way that he gave me the case. The defense expert recognized that there was something wrong. And he gave me exactly what I needed. What could be better than having the defense expert admit there was a tumor there?
Exactly. Yeah. Time for lunch, everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Depositions are critical to be taken of certainly the physician who may be at fault or the driver of the vehicle that may be at fault. Here's another example. Driver of a vehicle said, listen, I had a green light and your client had a red light. And I say to them, well, do you know or have you ever seen any of the movies that were taken, videos that were taken of the scene? World today where there are cameras everywhere.
Yep.
And I end up showing him the video, which showed that he clearly had the red light, not the green light. And I said to him, having looked at that, do you now recollect that the light for you was red? He said, yeah, unfortunately so. Case over.
Wow.
So when
was that a case of somebody trying, knowing deep down inside, yeah, well, let's see if we can pull this one off?
Yes, you are correct. And they had it in their answers to questions called interrogatories that they had the green light. Whether it was the lawyer who suggested that that was the case or whether the client told the lawyer that that was the case. And here comes the video and case is over. That is back to what I talked about early about preparation. There is no substitute for preparation. And I always check to see if there is any cameras anywhere around. And remarkably, I have a very same situation now where the insurance company has said, your client was at fault. I have a video that shows that he wasn't. It was taken at a gas station. And I had 3 witnesses who were at the gas station who corroborated that the fact that the light was green for my client. So that case is in litigation right now, and
I
they will
want I
see
want
that.
to finite here with that gas station. Is it easy in these situations to get that video? Do you just walk in or have somebody from your firm say, "Hey, by the way, we had an accident on the 23rd. I understand that you have video. Can we get a copy of that?" Do they usually give it or do they have
Yes,
to give it?
yes, you can subpoena that.
Okay.
And it also applies, Steve, in another serious crash that had occurred. Uh, a bank, a bank that was hundreds of yards away had a video when the people come in, to make a deposit or take money out with their vehicle. The camera showed at 300 yards away this incident occurring where a truck never stopped, and my client was stopped at a red light, and the truck rammed into the car, and unfortunately the driver was killed. And that video was everything about the case.
Wow.
And yes, you can subpoena it. But what I did in the gas station case was I sent out my investigator, which is important to do, right after the incident, right after I got the call. And I wanted him to check the area. He checked the area. He went over to the gas station, found out if they had anything. Do you have any cameras? Yes. Can I see it? Yes. Boom, there it is. And then I got a copy of it. And that's part of the preparation that we talk about in terms of don't sit back. When something like that happens, get in there early and find out what really happened. Cameras are everywhere.
Yeah, facts don't lie. And I hear what you're saying about doing it sooner than later, because if you get there, let's say a few days after the accident, week, whatever the situation, not months later, the clerk at the gas station may have been working that day. Now you have another potential witness. Maybe they didn't see
Correct.
something, maybe they heard something, whatever it might be. In your preparation, and now I'm going a little deeper here. In your preparation, do you run deeper with backup? Like, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. I need it. I'm pulling this one out as well. Like different levels of prep.
Yeah, I think that, a lot depends on the particular case because there may be a lot of people involved, but you have to, for example, depose and or interview witnesses who may not be connected with one party or the other. We go out, we identify them, we get statements from them in writing.
Mhm.
So as time passes, as you know, cases aren't tried the next day like you see on TV. You have to build your case. And the more you're able to do it and get those witnesses, you will win the case. No question about it.
Wow. I want to briefly go back to the very beginning. When you tried those 2 cases, basically in the beginning of your career, they told you that it's probably, a lost effort and you won them. Were you nervous?
Well, of course, you're nervous a little bit because you've never done it before. Whenever anybody does anything that they've never done before, there can be a little bit of nerves. But I felt very confident that I could really persuade the jury that this was not the client's fault. And I think that, just like anything else, when somebody presents a case, the most important traits that you can have are sincerity, calmness, not be obnoxious, and if you're cross-examining somebody, do it with art, not with raising your voice. You are going to prepare to cross-examine that person. You're going to know what the issues are going to be that can help you win the case. And all you have to do for a lot of cases is to neutralize them as a matter of fact, as opposed to kill them. I've always been a believer that you don't have to kill a witness 6 times to win the case. All you have to do is kill him once and get him on the key issue.
And I can see you in court based on everything you just said. And the way you speak, it's almost as if they're going to give it up anyway. So instead of, all righty, on the 23rd, it's going to show itself. It's going to, how is it always said that, well, I had an attorney say to me in a situation that I needed representation back in the day, the truth will always come out, no matter what. It will.
Hopefully. But I'm also a believer that you get more flies with sugar than you do
Sure.
with vinegar. And we
Sure.
all know that situation. And sometimes it's very hard to do that. But I think it can be done in a way where they don't see it coming
Right.
and you end up getting exactly what you want because you are prepared to do that, which is 9/10 of the trial of a case, preparation.
What do you say to somebody who's in a situation and not sure if they should retain an attorney? Something happened, maybe an accident, whatever it might be. Is it a better rule of thumb to just make that call? You never know.
Well, you raise a good point here about hiring a lawyer. I'm a believer that potential clients maybe initially are dealt with over the phone, but I find it helpful for the client to meet in person with the lawyer. We're beyond the pandemic now. Everybody likes to email, text, but in terms of hiring a lawyer for a serious matter, it's like going to a doctor. Go to that person in person. Satisfy yourself that this person is the right lawyer for you. And check out the lawyer. What has that lawyer done? In today's world, Steve, we're in the Google world. You can find out a lot about a lawyer. You can find out a lot about what the lawyer has done, what success the lawyer has had, whether he is or she has handled a case similar to the case that you have. And don't necessarily rely on radio, TV, billboards. They're all out there. And go meet your lawyer and meet in person and find out what that lawyer's experience is. Have you ever handled a case like this? How would you go about handling a case like this? Do I have a viable case? Are you able to do it? You're a busy lawyer. Can you handle the case, even though you're handling these other cases at the same time? And that kind of meeting is extremely helpful, both to the lawyer, but more importantly, to the client, potential client that's going to hire the lawyer. Check the lawyer out.
How do we check you out? How do we find
Well,
you?
there are a lot of different ways. One, you can Google me. You can find out, what I have done in my career. That I'm a member of organizations which you can't apply to. You have to be selected, like the American College of Trial Lawyers, the International Society of Barristers, the International Academy of Trial Lawyers, the American Board of Trial Advocates. I've given probably 60 lectures for the National Business Institute on all types of topics within the practice of trial. And embarrassingly, I was named by the city of Baltimore as being one of 11 legal legends. I think I was the youngest one that was ever named,
Wow.
but it was a great honor, and the people that were there were great. Put me aside, they were great, the best of the best. And I've worked in bar associations, president of the Maryland Trial Lawyers Association, president of the Baltimore City Bar Association, president of the Maryland State Bar Association. And I've lectured in all of those organizations. And a lawyer can get his name out, and people can come and see and hear them talk and give presentations that end up being lawyers that would refer matters to you, to me, because of what I've done, over the years. And I'm a person that believes that, unfortunately, many trial lawyers don't end up trying cases because they're afraid to lose. You've got to be able to know that nobody wins all the cases. If you have a viable case and the settlement is not in the area that you believe, with your experience, your training, your education, try the case. And you will find sometimes, Steve, that when you try the case, it settles before the case goes to the jury. I had one just about a month ago where I was in trial for 2 weeks, and we settled just before we went to the jury. Put on our case, the defense put on their case, we put on our rebuttal case, and we were ready to go to the jury. Case settled.
Wow. What's your website for the firm?
So the name of the firm is Bekman, Marder, Hopper, Malarkey, and Perlin. It's www.thatfirmname. It's Paul Bekman, Bekman.
Pleasure talking with you. Love the insight. Congratulations on all your accomplishments and also being our Centaurian recipient. And looking forward next time we get together.
Hope to see you soon, Steve.
Time for lunch.
Okay.
We'll catch up, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.